Most of you will have a plan for the next quarter, and you've probably got one for the next 5 years, including revenue, headcount, the next role or the exit, and where you plan to live. All of it strategically mapped out. Now tell me the plan you have for the body and the brain that is going to carry you through this. Not a high-level goal, not a vague intention to get fit and healthy again. A concrete, actionable plan. This week, I'm bringing you a conversation I had on the Don't Let the Old Man In podcast with my good Irish buddy, Pod O'Sullivan. Pod, as he does, pushed me, challenged me, got me thinking differently, and we explored a few topics I haven't got to on my own show. The Performance Intelligence podcast team wanted to share this conversation with you to get you thinking differently about the way you're planning your next 5 years. And when it comes to optimizing your potential and minimizing the risk of burning out, you're going to walk away knowing exactly what to measure and exactly where to start. This is the show that brings potential into everyday life. This is Performance Intelligence.
What will our audience get from our conversation today?
Burnout is not what they think it is. We have the wrong definition of burnout and we have the wrong treatment for burnout. I don't think we've got a burnout problem.
What do we have?
Good start to the podcast, isn't it? I think we have a problem between not building enough capacity and poor strategic recovery. Now, we'll go through the definition today. Some of the burnout we see, that's either individual or organisational, yeah, it's true. I've been doing work like you for 20 plus years in the corporate world, the last 15 at the pointy end. When people are tired and fatigued and their backside's hanging out, it's easy to go to, I'm burnt out. They're not. They're tired and fatigued. They don't have the right capacity. They don't have the right systems. They may not have the right connectivity. They may not be on purpose or have meaning or joy. So it's easy to hang on burnt out because it's the easiest thing to grasp. In elite sport, it's very rare for players to burn out. We spend more time on recovery than we do on training. That hasn't caught up in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Has not caught up anywhere near where it should have.
We do hear the word burnout a lot in modern day language. In fact, I was in a meeting recently where 4 or 5 execs were debating how burnt out they all were. And that's a different story.
I'm more burnt out than you.
I'm more burnt out than you. Let me show you how. Tell me, what does burnout look like for a man in his 40s or 50s, in your mind?
Let me give the definition for men and women. The definition at its core, burnout occurs when the demands of a job outweigh a person's ability to cope with pressure or the requirements. So there's this dance or this relationship between resources and skills and pressure or stress. In 2019, remember COVID, the World Health Organization updated their 11th revision of what burnout is, and included in it is an occupational phenomenon stating burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. I'll say that again. Chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It's characterized by these 3 dimensions. There's a psychologist who they worked with, I think her name was Admonson, who looked at these 3 specific things. Number 1, feelings of physical and emotion energy depletion. Number 2, increased mental distance from one's job, negativism and cynicism. And number 3, reduced personal accomplishment or professional inefficacy. So if I summarize all those big words, all research backed, there's no joy, there's no luster in the job. It's bloody hard work.
And that bloody hard work does not mean it's physically bloody hard work, right? If you're in a building site 15 hours a day, that's hard.
That's hard.
But you're not saying that. You're saying that the whole experience of your job is not fulfilling you, it's not rewarding you, there's no sense of positivity, and you walk home more tired than you wake up the next day. That idea.
Ultimately, and I've seen some of the wonderful guests you've had on this podcast, we want a purpose-filled life. When you're purposeful, you make more money, you're going to live longer, you bounce back, you are more hardy, so you'll bounce back from stressful situations. But for a lot of people, Pod, to define purpose, it takes you 3 to 6 months. You know that as a coach, it's a real deep dive. We don't go, hey, ladies and gentlemen, in the half-day workshop today, from 10:30am to 11am, we're going to define your purpose. And you go, you need a shower. Yeah. So the next level below that, I talk about vitamin FLPJ. Have some fun, laughter, play, joy. Let's just pause on that. Your audience is from late 30s to early to mid 60s. So how many of the men watching or listening to this, or female partners or friends, are absent of fun, laughter, play and joy? That's the entry level. So what are you doing that makes you giggle? Like you and I had a bit of a laugh about some stupid things before we started. That's good. We feel good. There's a whole chemical reaction. Laughter. What about play? I was at my daughter. I've got 4 kids, like you. We've got a lot of kids. And I saw on the wall, there was an Einstein quote, and I thought, here's a public school in Sydney with an Einstein quote that I love. Play is the highest form of research. And for years, we looked at play as, he's frivolous, or he's got all the time, and, midlife crisis, a bit reckless. What is a world without play? There's a wonderful psychologist who, at 89 years of age, so you're stepping into this wonderful new role. Hey, congratulations. Talk about disruption. You could have easily just coasted into the exec coaching you were doing. But Dr. Stuart Brown, do you know about him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he founded the National Institute of Play when he was in his late 80s. Been a psychologist, had, I think, like you, 2 masters or 2 specialist study groups, and he just went, all I'm doing is achieving results and trophies, and it's all this external definition of success. Let's go back and play. And he looked at play deprivation, really similar to the signs and symptoms of sleep deprivation: irritable, cranky, poor, what is it, poor? Memory recall. Oh, dear.
The jokes are as bad as they ever were.
They haven't got better. But he looked at it, 89 years of age. Yeah. We need to put more research into play. And
what's fascinating
about
his story, which I love, actually I had forgotten him until you raised him, is he became more famous for that, despite his previous 45-year career in deep academia and research. And then that's what he's known for, is investigating.
I believe some of his contemporaries at that stage thought he lost it, had dementia, and had some serious conversations. Dr. Brown, you are this esteemed, this knowledgeable, this omnipresent psychologist. What are you doing, mate? And he said, well, I'm living. I'm really living. So, yeah, it's wonderful that he's known for that.
I was in a meeting a few weeks ago, and so top 40, 50 leaders at this organization, they are in an industry that is being absolutely disrupted by AI. Now, every industry has been touched by it. This one has been disrupted completely. So existential questions happening at this level of leadership. And this topic of we're working really hard, burnout came up, and we make sure we all take care of each other. And the CEO, controversially I have to say, but nonetheless, when it came to him doing a speech, he goes, I want to let you know, I've been the CEO of this organization for blah, blah, blah. I've been the CEO elsewhere. This person's very well known. This person's a global leader. He said, I have never in my life been burnt out. Never. And I'm not suggesting that I'm macro or brilliant compared to you. What I'm saying is I take care of myself because I need to perform. And so I just want to make sure that you are allowing yourself and giving yourself permission. In fact, I'm mandating you to take care of yourself and not get burnt out, because it is your choice. And he went on and on, and folks in the crowd didn't like it. But his message basically was, it's in your power to recover.
I bet the ones that didn't like it the most were the ones who were most challenged. Okay. I bet the ones who didn't like it the most were the ones who were feeling really vulnerable, really exposed. Because it's easy, back to at the start, it's easy to blame the organisation. Now, there's organisational burnout. That's cultural, and that occurs when an organisation is in a paralysed state which it can no longer positively change on its own. But the premise of this conversation about burnout, I think fundamentally we push it to someone else. It's the organisation's fault. It's my partner's fault. It's society's fault. Bullshit. It's your fault, fundamentally, to develop the capacity. Now, I coach 4 or 5 CEOs, men and women, the top 40 or 50 ASX. What's out in the public domain? Matt Common from Combank, Nick Hawkins from IAG, Adam Watson as well from APA. Now, those men, Shelley Roberts, who's now the global operations manager at Compass in the UK with tens of thousands of staff. So those men and women, they train for leadership capacity. So when we look at that, what have we trained with them? Like with Nick Hawkins and Matt, I've been behind the scenes until they spoke on my podcast, and now I can tell people, for a decade, we trained physical capacity. So what is your VO2 max? What's your heart rate? What's your heart rate variability? We've got metrics and data around this. We train their psychological capacity. How do you look at hardiness as a construct? How do you look at mental agility? I don't like resilience, bouncing back from, whereas hardiness is getting ready to run into. We look at operational capacity. That's around productivity systems, better week. So how you set yourself up. And then there's that social or relational. So there's layers in all this to develop capacity. Oh, it's too hard. I'm going to blame someone else. Now, I'm not saying everyone does that. I think we've got soft. I really do. So if I look in sporting teams I work with, we train them hard, we push them hard, and we recover them hard. What happens? You grow. You rise, you adapt, you learn. Is it hard? God, yeah. Like the life of an elite athlete, it's ruthless.
And you know what I think about an athlete? There's an unspoken but understood premise. You're as good as your next game. And your next game might be your last game for us or for a long time. How many of us in non-athletic words go to work going, if I don't perform today, I might not be here tomorrow?
But what it trains, it does train whatever you call it, grit, resilience, hardiness. So think about NRL. So for your Australian audience, they know National Rugby League, your global audience, there's 27 weeks and those players in the men's competition play 24 games. So let's say in a 6-month block, you have 24 interviews to see whether you've got a job that week. So the notion of this, think of your corporate audience rocking into work on a Monday and all sitting around going, right, are you in pod? Yeah. Am I in? I don't know. And if I'm not in, I can't carry on. What's your swear level like on this podcast?
Very high.
Okay, you can't carry on like a fucking arsehole because I've got to then pack in with you in training and set you up for success because you might get injured or selected to go on to the next level and then I've got to come in. So just the mindset on that, 24 times a year, rocking up to work and not knowing whether you're selected or not. So what does that change? So what does that train? This wonderful mental agility for those players that last. So are we too soft? I think so. But so your audience doesn't just get hysterical with me, there's a balance somewhere in between. Because I realise elite sport is cutthroat. Elite athletes might have a 10, long careers 15. Most of them have 5 to 7. Yeah. You know, in our lives, your audience, we might have a 40 or 50 year career. So there are some differences.
And they perform for 90 minutes, 120 minutes a week, and they train and recover the rest of the time.
They train for 25 to 30. So it
so
is
there's
different.
Hugely different in that regard.
However, you look at those CEOs that I work with and CEOs you work with, they train to develop capacity. They have systems and processes and accountability. So I like that the CEO pushed it on his team because he's saying, I think in our language, I don't believe in a lot of burnout. It's bullshit. I believe there's a capacity problem and you under-recover.
In fact, what he said, which goes to the notion of systems, he said, I look at my calendar every week. If I don't have enough swims in my calendar, I take out something to put in my swim because I know that's the process that works.
And I can give you data. I think we might say we might get Dr. Tom in for another discussion, but what we're doing on executive performance, so we go deep with our leadership group. So we get a blood profile, we do DEXA, and we do a lot of questionnaires, science-based questionnaires. So on the blood profile, we're looking at glucose markers, we're looking at DHEAX, the precursor to testosterone, we're looking at vitamin D, we're looking at iron levels, and we're seeing some fascinating patterns, Pod. So we're seeing the average male exec in Australia and across Asia Pacific, we're seeing really high iron levels. Stress does something to iron and iron absorption. So
and what's the impact of high iron?
You can end up, your body spends so much time trying to get rid of the iron, you're fatigued.
Okay. So energy expended in the wrong place. Energy
expended in the wrong place. Has a couple of other upstream effects. We're seeing in Australia, you come from Ireland, what did you love about this beautiful land?
The sun.
The sun.
Yeah, vitamin D's.
Why are we seeing in 2/3 of our executives low vitamin D? Because they're not getting outside. But no, it's a burnout problem. No. Do one of your meetings and walk outside. Get some sun of a morning to wake up your circadian rhythm.
What are you seeing in testosterone?
Low. Especially, low is it nature nurture? Mm-hmm. And Dr. Tom argues on this as well. If you're feeling like you don't have much self-efficacy or power in the situation, if you're feeling like you're not really connecting, you're not loving what you do, is it nature nurture? So then you're not getting outside, you're not connecting, you're not lifting weights, the fountain of youth. I work with some people who work 90 to 100 hours a week, and they've done that for decades. They freaking love what they do. Mm. I work with some people who work 38 hours, not a minute more. Yeah. And I love the work we do in the government. Yeah, but there's some government departments we're working with. You get to 5 o'clock, they're out. And they're the ones telling me, I'm under the pump. I'm so tired. I'm so fatigued. So no. What's going on here? I think a lot of that is related to capacity. And I think a lot of it is related to, what are you doing? Do you love your job? Or are you finding that your job is giving you some of that meaning and connection and purpose?
Let's go back to last time we spoke, we talked about purpose, and purpose alignment is spending time figuring it out. And certainly in the work I do, people who feel aligned to their work are more purpose-driven, and that brings a lot of energy and discretionary effort. Put that aside for the moment. You said below that you went down to fun and joy and those type of things.
Fun, laughter, play, joy.
Fun, laughter, play, joy.
Yeah, or I call it vitamin FLPJ. So when I do a presentation on this, I've got a little tablet, FLPJ, and say to everyone, here's the vitamin you all need. And
What's that? There's also a lot of research, and the study I'm doing in England is helping me figure this out. Men are known, compared to women, men are less likely to ask for help around health, less likely to ask for help around loneliness, less likely to ask for help around any kind of mental health illness, particularly depression. If you tie that with, I'm not in a role where I feel aligned to, or I'm no longer purpose-driven, how does that show up in the male executive population that you're working with?
I've got some stats for you, and then I'll answer that question. So when we look at global stats, over half of workers globally report feeling burnt out in 2024. So over half. 4 out of 10 executives say they feel always on, or they feel exhausted or stressed. That's research from Deloitte. Nearly 71% of C-suite leaders have seriously considered quitting for a role that better supports their well-being. Cannot tell you how many times, Pod, I've had a senior male executive saying, I want to own a bike store. Don't. It'll send you broke. Or I want to have a coffee shop. Don't. It's much cheaper to buy coffee up the road. Only 37% of men seek support when they need it. That's from Australia Beyond Blue. And almost 1 in 2 Australians who eventually sought help waited until they were broken or extremely broken. So how does this show up? It's generational. One of the learnings I have with sport, and I love this, in professional sport, contact mainly in their 20s, guys who extend their career into early 30s, women is similar. It is so different. I look at some of the conversations we've had at Manly, and I'll credit Jake Travojevic, now the co-captain on this, who'll openly talk about their feelings and emotions. So young men now, I'll look at my son Archie, who's 15, he'll say, I've had a bad day, or Dad, one of my mates is feeling really, really sad at the moment. I didn't say that growing up in Dubbo. Why? Pull your head in, mate. You grew up in the country. Harden up, mate. Fucking harden up. How'd that end up working out for us? I look at my dad, and I love him. He's almost 80. And Dad went through the Department of Agriculture where they were told, Trev, you get a job for life. He said to me when I was 17 and I finished school at St. John's College, Dubbo, Andy, look at a government job. You'll get a job for life. What Dad didn't know is 5 years later, they went through economic rationalisation, downsizing, upskilling, all words for, hey, we're going to retrench you. And Dad was functioning depressed for 4 or 5 years. So that really triggered my interest in this, mate, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, seeing my dad, a really good footballer, my dad, a farmer, my dad, a strong man, struggling. And he couldn't acknowledge it. Either could his mate Martin or Bill, or the names go on. And a lot of those men in that generation I just saw, my dad's generation, didn't have the skills or the emotional bandwidth or the emotional regulation to say, hey, I'm not okay. I don't think this is a problem for young men at the moment in their 20s and early 30s. Where this kicks in, I see that's at mid to late 30s, 40s, and hello, our generation, 50s plus, because we've been taught, harden up, mate, kick a footy, shear a sheep, cut down a tree.
You're talking about identity, aren't you? In terms of my identity is what I do and how well I do it. And if what I do no longer exists or changes or is cut away from me, or indeed I thought I would want to do this and 40 years later I hate it, then I'm in an identity crisis, yeah?
2 identities to look at. One is your performance-based identity. You have a very strong performance-based identity. I come in here, you've got a 5-shoot podcast, you're doing multiple channels, you've got a multimedia company. What are you now, in your early 40s?
Close enough, close enough. So everyone knows I'm 56.
so you got a very strong performance-based identity, as am I, as a former athlete and building businesses and doing this stuff. I am. You know my story, a lot of the audience won't. My identity was so extrinsic, so external, that I built it up to 40 years of age. I was working with the Australian cricket team, I'd written a book, I'm on the Today Show. I had a wife and kids, lived in a waterfront house in Northbridge. External, extrinsic bullshit. And then I went through this identity crisis when I separated with my first wife, 2 young kids from an Irish Catholic background, because I was so worried. I've got a term for it now I've adapted from Michael Gervais, leading psychologist. It was FOPO, fear of other people's opinion. I was so insecure. I over-indexed on achievement. Now, if you go back to university, I think it was the great man who left this planet way too early, Tony Grant, who was talking about the good life versus the goods life. You know, the good life, pleasure, meaning, success. The goods life, power, money, trophies. I studied it, but I didn't listen to it because I was so focused on that performance-based identity. So what I had to do, and what I'm now good at doing with my clients, is going, and you've got to have a performance-based identity if you want to have a crack in any endeavor in life. There's nothing wrong with that. And what's your purpose-based identity? Fuck, what do you mean, Maisie? Can I just do the 30-minute part in this segment we spoke about in the master? No. Purpose, we know the research. Purpose is going to make you live longer. Purpose is going to make you bounce back, and purpose is going to help you in multiple domains in your life. But purpose, it's difficult, and it takes a lot of thinking, and it takes time. What do most of your audience not have? Time. They're too busy.
Or they don't make time. I mean, and that's what this whole podcast is trying to do, is to suggest the second half of life can be your best half of life, but it requires you to potentially do things differently. It requires you to go, I've done this for 25 years. I had to feed my family, build a house, get a mortgage. That's all fine. But I don't have to do it going forward. I can choose different things. Now, going from a highly paid exec job to buying a coffee shop in one fell swoop may not be the best decision, but you could do it if you work through the process.
And you could do it if you really think about it. So just closing out, I say to a lot of I work with men and women, but specifically for our conversation today with your audience, men, a lot of them, that purpose-based identity and that performance-based identity, it's like a bicycle, a penny farthing. So the performance-based identity is so big and the purpose-based identity is small. It's like Mulga Bill's bicycle. Now, when you're traveling along a flat road, you got good clip, you got good speed. What happens when you get to a few bumps on off-road? Shit, it throws you off, or the bike stalls. So my story, picking myself back up, I sold a previous business to KPMG. And then I got in there, and even though I'd gone through all this, it was like, okay, I'm paid more money than I ever thought I was going to get paid. I'm traveling around the world, and I've got great opportunities, and they wanted me to do a global role. It was a 3-year earnout, as you know, selling a business. And into the final year, with 9 months left on my contract, I said, hey, I'm out. And they freaked out. We'll pay you more. No, I want to do something else. And I left with grace, still got good connections with the firm, and I got a coach to help me work out what my purpose was. And purpose is bigger than you. Purpose is future focused. And purpose excites the freaking living daylights out of you. So when I did that coaching, I thought, I want to go back and start another business. I'm going to have another crack. And I'm going to go back to sport. And I'm going to go back and move from being an athlete to being a strength and conditioning coach to what combines it all, mental skills and leadership. So I left a very big salary, went out on my own, was really brave, and then COVID hit. Thank God I had a clearly articulated because there are moments there, Pod, I'm going, what have I done? Did I burn out during that? No. Was I working long hours? Yes. But I was investing in my physical capacity. I was investing in my psychological capacity. I was investing in operational, being productive, good systems, good processes, not doing shit that doesn't add value, and really good relationships and people with me.
So let's double down on capacity. That's a word you used a couple of times today. So whether you are an executive bank, or whether you are a tradie or a plumber, or whether you own a coffee shop, capacity applies to all of us, right? What are the core things that you think about in terms of, as a midlife age man, here's the key things to focus on for the next 20, 30 years to at least maintain capacity, if not increase it? Yeah.
Can I give you 2 answers on that? And if I get too excited on the first one, pull me back into line. First one, it's really hard to change something if you can't measure it. Yeah. Second, we'll talk about what people can do. So how do you measure it first? I'd be looking at some key metrics. I'd be looking at, what is your resting heart rate? So Dr. Tom and I talk about 5 metrics. Any leadership program we do, any large-scale program, the Australian Defence Force, our social mastery program, which is an adaptation of Goleman's emotional intelligence, we've had 7,500 people through this. So we've got lots of data points. We look at with wearable tech, I'm device agnostic. So it doesn't matter what device, but what do you need to measure? You need to measure heart rate. What's your resting heart rate? You need to measure heart rate variability. That really is an index to show how your body is responding to demands and stress and how you're recovering. I'd look at sleep, deep sleep, so 90 minutes of deep sleep. Then I'd look at some of the inputs, 10,000 steps every day. So look at daily steps, and then look at exercise minutes. 300 exercise minutes in a week is what most people need because we're sitting on our asses way too much. Most of that is zone 2, so that low steady state cardio where you can have a light conversation. And it's only a little bit, but that zone 4, the interval, the high intensity, about 6 minutes, 1 or 2 times a week. So you do a couple of intervals and back off. They're your metrics. They're the 5 metrics. So
no strength work?
Strength, grip strength is one of the metrics that's most associated with age. So, but from a wearable tech, they're the 5 metrics I get for people. Yep. So resting heart rate variability, deep sleep, exercise minutes, and then daily steps. Then I'd also be looking at what are some basic strength measurements. Okay. So one thing, and I wrote this down for your audience. So I got this off a mate of mine, Paul Taylor. But it's the 50 to the power of 4. So I love that. So in your 50s, aim for a heart rate less than 50 beats a minute. Have a heart rate variability over 50 and have a VO2 max over 50. I'd love to know how many in your audience who are 50 plus have a heart rate less than 50 beats a minute, a heart rate variability over 50, and a VO2 max over 50.
Explain to us why they're important. Right?
So resting heart rate is your capacity, your energy management. So your beating heart is the rhythm or the pulse of your body. So if your heart at rest was beating at 75 beats a minute, bang, 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 bang.
And at rest means when you're asleep or when you're sitting in the chair, where you're doing nothing.
There's a difference between basal pulse rates, which you're going to get in the early hours of the morning, and we'll go resting heart rate. So but resting heart rate, so when you wake up, the metric we give people is we want most men to be low to mid 50s. Yeah, women will be high 50s to low 60s. The female heart is a little bit smaller, so it beats more. But if your resting heart rate is 75 beats a minute and someone else has got a resting heart rate of 55, how much more energy is that per minute? And then when stress comes, if you've got a low resting heart rate, you can pulse or surge and then come back down. So resting heart rate shows you the cardiac strength. So you've got this 4-chambered pump. If you've got a low resting heart rate, boom, boom.
So let me double that there. So you're saying the slower your heart rate, that's naturally slower as opposed to medically induced or
We're not talking about beta blockers.
Yeah, so the slower it is, that means that the more capacity for your heart to pump, and under stress, the more like runway it has to give you.
The more efficient you are at a lower level, and then the more scope you have to go up. Okay. So when we talk about training, it's this difference between do interval training and do low, steady cardio exercise. Don't just do all this zone 3 or 4 on the rivet where you're burning yourself out. So yeah, heart rate is one of the core metrics. Okay. And it's totally trainable because your heart, myocardial tissue is just like your biceps or shoulders. You're looking lean and fit, so you're obviously lifting. So if you want to get strong, you do reps and sets. You get your heart strong by doing reps and sets, intervals at a high level, and then the magic happens at that zone 2. So chase a low heart rate.
Heart rate variability, why is that?
Heart rate variability is very individual, based on genetics and also based on trainability. But a heart rate variable of 50 or plus shows that you've got a really good band to absorb stress. Tom and I had an executive 9 or 10 years ago. We were talking about this recently, Dr. Tom. He worked in the property sector. We didn't have heart rate variability on Garmin's or Apple Watches or Fitbits or Whoops back then. We'd actually put a monitor on. It was First Speak. From Finland, I saw the English cricket trainer, Nige Stockwell. I'll make sure Nige gets this. Hello, Nige. And I bought it over here. We were the first to have it. So we put a monitor on for 48 hours and we look at your heart rate variability. Heart rate variability, it'll drop during the day because of the demands of the stress in the body. And then it should go up at night. Yeah, so you see this relationship. Your heart rate variability should go up at night and your resting heart rate comes down. Yeah, so you see the beautiful waves between the day. This male exec was late 40s, very close to 50. His HRV was 11 and it was flat. Tom's only said this to one person. You need to do 2 things. You need to leave your job and you need to go and do something else. Otherwise, you will not be here in 6 months' time.
So was that psychological stress that was pushing that for him or was it lifestyle conditions because of psychological stress?
Every hour. It was chicken egg. But his whole body was saying, hey, I am just beyond coping. So that is real burnout.
What was the colour of his face? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. He looked ashen-faced. His posture was poor. I'm going back to looking at what he was because I've seen him. He has a beach on the northern beaches. He looks freaking awesome. He looks 10, 15 years younger. He's got a tan. He's got the buzz haircut. He had the sweep over there and he was hanging on. So heart rate variability are 2 very important metrics.
Okay. VO2 max above 50. Why is that important?
So VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen per kilogram per minute you can pump. Yeah. So 50 is more just a metric to chase. So that's elite. But if you look at, I think the highest ever recorded VO2 max of an Australian athlete was Cadell Evans. He was 89 or 90. That's off the charts. But if you're above 50, that just shows you've got this massive engine. And again, the ability to pump oxygen and blood through your body when you're under stress. One of the biggest limitations in endurance sport and footy, it's lactic acid. Yeah, so it's getting enough oxygen in, and then it's removing the lactic acid. So when you've got a high VO2 max, it's a really efficient pump to get oxygen in and to get waste products out.
What does someone like who's listening to this, who has not measured anything like this, who's going, okay, so I've been hearing stories, I've been listening to podcasts, Andrew sounds like he's narrowed it down to key metrics. Where would I start?
How serious are you?
How serious am I?
Yeah.
Assume that I am the listener, I am serious.
Yeah. When you renovate a house, how much time and effort do you put into it? How much time and effort would this person put into it? Do you just go and get the first builder, the first kit home, the first tin of paint, the first windows, the first set of curtains? Rubbish. How long does the average person spend getting ready to renovate a house? Question for you.
I would imagine, if I look at I've done 2 in the last couple of years.
I've seen you one of them.
Yes, you have seen one of them, yeah. I've spent probably a year and a half planning it, actually, and getting a whole lot of research. And
it's a minimum of 6 to 12 months. So just frame that. You asked me the question, what should someone do? So if someone's renovating a house, they will spend 6 to 12 months. How much money will they spend on planning, on going to showrooms, on getting consultants in? What would the average person spend on a big build? $50,000 to $100,000. And then you say to someone, let's spend a bit of time talking about the number one thing that's going to help you live to 90 plus. Yeah, mate, but I'm too busy for that shit. So are you really serious as you get into your 40s and 50s about living a long, healthy, prosperous life? Now, if you are, change the narrative. It's bullshit. Like I say this in my keynotes. So men in the room, who loves cars? 2/3 put the audience up. So when a dashboard diagnostic goes off on your car, what do? I take it to the mechanic, mate, or I fix it myself. Why? I love my car, mate. Okay, awesome, great. Who's had a dashboard diagnostic going on their body or their brain the last 10 years? The following. Who wakes up and's got a creaky hip or knee? Who's had a hamstring that keeps twinging every time they run? Who puts the belt on and says to their female partner, babe, did you take these pants to the dry cleaner? No, champ, you've been eating too many donuts. And I could go on and on and on. So I would say prioritize this. But, we both studied coaching psychology. We get this web of habits and we get this web of limiting beliefs. You got to unpack that, and it's hard.
What are some of those beliefs or narratives that you've helped people unravel?
Exercise is for elite. Nutrition is really hard, and I've got to be super disciplined. I can't have any alcohol. High performance is boring. Living a long, healthy life is punishing and monotonous. Being connected and having everything in my life is not achievable.
And what are some of the narratives that have emerged when people have played with those to write a new one?
I think we've stuffed up exercise. I really do. And I've seen the episode you had with Gordon Spence, and Gordon's doing some great work in this. But we sell gym memberships, Pod, with before and after. So here's the before. What does a male look like? If he's got a hairline like yours and mine, they'll grow it. So you got the sweep over. So you're already off to a bad start. Apologies to any of your audience for the sweep over. And then the guy will be a little bit shoulders shrugged. They'll be tight in the pec minor. The head will be forward. They'll look white. They just look a bit, like you said, the guy with the HRV. They just look a bit flat. What does the post look like 3 months after you've gone to a gym? What does it look like?
Well, like that.
So for anyone who's watching this on YouTube, I'm flexing. I've got a stupid smile. I look like I'm constipated, and I've got a fake tan. So go to the gym. You do this awkward flex. You get a fake tan, and you look constipated. We should be selling, hey, go to the gym, and you've got mental agility. Go to the gym, and you're going to massively decrease your risk of Alzheimer's. Hey, who's got kids? Go to the gym. Fit, healthy parents have fit, healthy kids. The number one defining factor on role modeling for kids is being a parent. That's a lever that I pull in all my coaching sessions. Imagine if we sold that. And then for our female audience, the lady will be there and she's sort of looking a bit slumped. And then 3 months later, she's there with high heels and flinging the hand back. And it's detrimental to women. Like, women don't just go like that when they go to the gym. You got lean body mass. You're a strong female. You feel good about yourself. You can lift and play with your kids. We've totally got it wrong. So yes, I work in the elite side of sport. Let's bring it back. If you could get a pill, a potion, a bottle or a lotion that's going to make you live longer, that's going to give you more mental capacity, emotional resilience. You've got something that's going to help you talk better, understand emotions better. And here's the kicker, it's going to improve your sex life. Woohoo, physical activity does all that.
And it costs you nothing.
Costs you nothing.
It's time and effort.
Yeah.
The narrative that I grew up with, which took me and I've discussed this in the past, it took me a long time to realize it was a narrative I inherited, but it played out in my own mind was, at this stage of my life, I shouldn't need to ... At this stage of my life, I should be able to eat whatever I want. At this stage of my life, I should be able to sit down at night time and watch television because I've worked too hard. And it took me a long time to realize, I was 12 or 13 when I first started hearing that. And I was 30 or 40 before I started realizing I'm saying that.
It's conditioning.
And I had to unravel it.
Yeah. You're too old for that. So my mum, God love her, she's 80 this year, and mum's playful. A lot of her friends are 15 to 20 years younger. It's really interesting looking at her birthday invite, and she's saying some of her friends can't come because they're incapacitated. Some of them are dead. But a lot of her friends are 15 to 20 years younger. She's playful. But I remember mum saying to me a few years ago, you're too old for that. I'm like, well, no. I'm going to be old because I do this. So I had this really interesting conversation with mum, and she went, yeah. Why did I say that? I said, because everyone's conditioned. These are not my terms. I've adapted them. But we've got to stop shooting all over each other and stop masturbating. I should do that. I must do that. No. I can, I will, I do. Really look at your language. So going back to, and I get a bit passionate about this, but you said for someone who wants to do this and invest in this, get some metrics. Yeah. But then I'd be looking at the result. Why? What do you mean? Well, why do you want to exercise? Or why do you want to eat better? Or why do you want to build your mental agility? It's not about the way you look. And that's again where gyms totally stuff this up, Pod. It's around my emotional regulation. It's around my brain. It's about my learning and memory recall. It's about the influence I have on other people. Like, why work until you're 50 or 60 and build up this wealth and then not be able to enjoy it? It's ridiculous.
You said the cognitive ability is the thing that I'm learning so much about in terms of how naturally our cognition can decline and how the rates of Alzheimer's increase as we get older to, like in Alzheimer's and dementia is now the number one killer in Australia, number 2 in the UK. Right?
We're getting older and we're seeing more and more brain deterioration because more people are getting older.
And physical health in terms of physically being healthy is one of the biggest mitigation risks against it.
BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic growth factor. So again, I didn't realise this when I was a young athlete. I didn't realise this when I studied exercise physiology. I sort of had an idea that was a lot more than just your body when I went into coaching psychology. Now it's multifactorial. And some of your audience, so this is a really interesting reflection on where people are. You'll have a significant or a heavy part of your audience who are head down. They're cerebral, they're intelligent. It's cognition, so it's thoughts. Okay, we'll come back to that. And you'll have some who are more like me as a young fella, we're feet up. So you're very movement oriented. Yeah. I want to get everyone here in the middle. So you're heart centered or purpose driven. So then the aperture can go up so you can use your head. It can come down and you use your feet. So what does that mean? Some people will overthink, pontificate, ruminate, castigate about why they should start a program. Just fucking start a program. Start walking and then your cognition will catch up. So again, understanding where you are is really important on this.
Can I look at some, I won't say trends, because that might be the wrong word, but I want to talk about wearables. I'm talking about cold plunges. I read it everywhere. And I've read so much about wearables can be useful and wearables at best infer the data, particularly sleep data at best. And cold plunges, I read something the other night where cold plunges are actually, they're not helpful for women at all, that they might be helpful for men. Tell me what you know about those.
So wearables is interesting because I've just done an article that was published across all of Fairfax papers as well. So we did an article on the rise of wearable tech. So when we do one of our leadership or executive programs, we'll get people whoop. So we're doing a program with global traders called Optiva. So we're working with their analysts and traders here in Australia, in Singapore and some in Europe as well. So we've got 180 Whoop bands on this group. Now, when we launch a program, whether it's an executive team or whether it's a mid-range team, I run at them and go, right, here's where wearables are good, here's the 5 metrics, and here's why you need to track that. You run a business based on KPIs and metrics, here's how you do that for your body. You become the CEO of your body and brain, right? There will be a small percentage of this group So in a leadership team of 12 to 15, it'll be 1 or 2 people who have high functioning or have diagnosed anxiety. Come and have a chat to me after. Because for a lot of people in that group, the information is going to send you spare. And you'll see you go out tonight and have 2 glasses of red wine and your heart rate variability drops from 40 down to 22. Oh, I'm never going to drink wine again. Well, part of what we know with the research about centenarians or people who live 100 plus, they'll dabble a little bit rather than getting smashed every day. So if you're obsessive about wearable tech, it can send you over.
There's a term for that, isn't it? Orthosomnia, where people who wear wearables to measure their sleep. I had a good sleep last night. Let me just check my wearable. Oh, it says I didn't have a good sleep. Oh, now I feel tired.
I didn't know the term, but it makes sense. Yes, if you're looking at a wearable of a morning to actually tell you, to dictate what sort of day you're going to have, the wearable is not working for you. Yeah, but let's take out that. I would say roughly 10% of people who I think shouldn't wear wearables. Yeah, okay. For the rest, wearables is a really good metric. But now I'm going to zoom out. There's inputs and there's outputs. Inputs would be daily steps. Inputs would be exercise. Inputs would be doing weight training. Inputs would be doing recovery. Outputs would be heart rate, resting heart rate, VO2 max. So what are the inputs that lead to the outputs? And that's where we do a lot of work individually on dialing those up and down.
I know you said earlier on that you're wearable agnostic, but is there any ones that you tend to go back to on a regular basis?
For anyone watching at the moment, I've got my Garmin do give me a product every year or two. So I've got a Garmin Phoenix at the moment. I like Garmin, but I've got clients who wear Aura rings. I've tried Whoop bands. I've tried Apple Watch. Look at the 5 metrics you need. Choose the device that works for you. I find a lot of executive men will like the Aura ring or a Whoop band. Garmin have now got a band, which is smart because they've got to be competitive in that market. So for people who like nice dress watches, they'll tend to go a band.
Okay. And the Apple Watch type genre, do they get the same data?
This is N=1. Yes, Apple Watch, you get similar data. I have, you'd be surprised you, I reckon I've got undiagnosed ADHD. Do you reckon I need to walk around with a pocket full of songs on my wrist and email, and I've got enough distractions going on in my head. I tried an Apple Watch a number of years ago and I got rid of it. Again, for me,
because of the stimulation outside of that.
I don't need the stimulation. Yeah. And from a cognition point of view, when we go operational capacity, to get into deep work, I don't want micro distractions taking me out of deep work or flow.
How about cold plunges?
So on cold water, we teach 3 levels. So for most of your audience, having a cold shower a few times a week is really good. I'll come back why in a moment. Then you could swim in an ocean. Now, it's in Sydney at the moment. The sharks, I've never worried about sharks until recently. Another story for another day, but I'm still ocean swimming. We'll be lucky if it gets as cold as 16 or 17 degrees. That's okay. Now, a cold water plunge of 4 degrees is dangerous for a lot of people. Do we do cold water plunges in elite sport? Yes. They're elite athletes and they're super, super fit. So for the average person listening to this, do not do a cold water.
And what's the link between that and cortisol? Is there a link between dropping your temperature down to
Dropping your temperature down will elevate cortisol as well. But the problem with people when they're getting so cold, if you've got a heart defect, it can bring on a heart attack. So on those 3 levels, cold shower for most people, fine. Swimming in a cold ocean, as long as it's not too cold, will be fine. If you're going to do the ice bath, like the Wim Hof method, and you're 40 plus, get your heart checked, or my view for most, you don't need to do it. Cold water at about 10 degrees, you get most of the benefits you need. And a cold shower, the main benefit on a cold shower is emotional regulation. Because if you just jump into a cold shower, you'll scream. So if you wash all your bits and wash everything, and then turn it to cold, do a couple of breaths, 30 seconds, then cold, you scream a lot less, pod. But what that is doing, it's teaching you that state management. So I think the biggest benefits about a cold shower is every day or regularly, you're training your nervous system to be calm.
I've never heard anyone say that. And I don't do cold showers on a regular basis because I actually don't like cold showers. But when I have done it, what I've noticed is it's forced me to stop, right? After the first... Okay, now it's not to breathe slowly. And once you get into that rhythm, okay, you can
actually feel good.
Yeah.
The science on cold water is nowhere near as conclusive as the science on sauna. Some of the science on cold, the nervous system regulation is the biggest benefit. Some brown fat, so you get that deeper brown fat, Cold water swimming will get rid of or start to move some of that. But they've got a longitudinal study, I think it's now 45 years, in Finland. The average Finnish male who saunas 3+ times a week for 15 to 20 minutes lives 8 to 10 years longer. So when I heard that research, I totally upped my sauna game. So
I am ecstatically happy you tell me that, because I went home to my wife, Carol, who you know, a few weeks ago, and said, I'm going to buy a sauna. And she goes, why? I said, Dr. Jennifer Luman was on my podcast today and she recommended it. And she recommended a particular Australian brand. And I just realized they're 5 kilometers from our house. So we had it installed last week.
So you got it? Yeah.
Outside.
Is it an infrared or a dry sauna?
It's a steam, so the traditional sauna. It's electricity powered steam, water on the coals type shower as sauna. And I've had sauna 4 nights of the last 5. I haven't slept as well in years, and I've only done between 12, actually the first night was 10 minutes, last night was 15 minutes.
Okay, so protocol is 15 to 20 minutes, 80 to 100 degrees, about 3 or 4 times a week when you're getting into it. Okay. I do know a number of people who've got a sauna and they've done it every day, and to whack them out. You can get a bit dehydrated, a few other challenges by doing it too much. So I do it, say, 3 times a week, 4 times a week.
Right. How does that help muscle recovery?
Sauna, you're getting low-level zone 2 training. So you can literally get those cardiovascular and metabolic benefits sitting on your ass. So who in your audience doesn't want to get some fitness benefits sitting on your ass? Yeah. So your heart rate will get up into that zone 2. You're also on dry sauna. So the research, infrared haven't been around as long, but the initial research is still promising. I still prefer dry heat. But you're also, because you're sweating from the inside out, so you're getting rid of a lot of the toxins. So you're getting a lot of those toxins out of your body. One thing a lot of people miss is when you finish, have a shower and wash it all off. That's a really big thing you've got to do.
Okay, cool.
So again, we're talking about burnout, and we've gone to physical exercise. We're talking about sauna. This all builds capacity.
Let's go back to where we started, and then I want to finish up with the listener who's going, give me 2 things I can do right now, right? You've got a really useful diagram here where we're talking about low risk to extreme risk. And just to help our listeners understand why you started by going, we don't have a burnout problem, we have a capacity problem, recovery problem. This will help explain it.
Life is not like a share portfolio. You don't just lock in and do a full dividend reinvestment plan. You got ups and downs, and that's the pulse of life. Yeah, there's times where you need to go really hard. You might have started a new role. You're starting a new family. You're wanting to create a relationship. Whatever it is, you're wanting to get fit. There's times in our life pod where we've got to go a little bit harder. This model takes that into context. So we've got here in the green, I call that the go zone. You're match fit. You've got mental clarity and focus, high energy, and capacity to absorb pressure. I'd say people in that would have a low resting heart rate, a high HRV. They're getting 90 minutes of deep sleep. They're doing 300 minutes of exercise. They're doing zone 2. They're probably doing sauna, and they're doing enough interval training that week as well. That's where you're flourishing. You teach this. You've had times where you just, like, you probably metaphorically, or maybe you do look in the mirror and go, you're the man, you're the guy, and everything's great. But then what happens? A kid gets sick, a relationship challenge, a change in the market.
So life happens.
Life. You move into that moderate risk. You've got poor or inadequate recovery. You find there's emotional and physical fatigue. You find that there's maladaptive coping. So you may start to have more alcohol or sugary foods, or those that like the burners or other stuff. And then you start questioning, why am I doing this? The sign on this that's really clear is irritability. How this shows up for me, and I know, it's when I'm carrying the groceries from the car inside and I get pissed off. And then I just get a check on myself. I live in a beautiful city. I live in a beautiful house. I've got a beautiful family. Yeah, most of the time for all that stuff. What the fuck am I going on about? Carrying my groceries in, and then I have a bit of a laugh about it. Now, if you don't do something and recover harder, you then get into the orange, which is higher risk. You start to feel overwhelmed. You get disillusioned and you get despondent. You make more mistakes. You become irrational, and your cognitive capacity drops. We've all been there. Now, to flex with this, I'll work with clients and groups and say, hey, if you don't get into that moderate risk of irritability a few times a year, you're not having a crack. So we're changing the narrative. Well, you mean I'm not meant to wake up every day and feel amazing? No. There's periods, there's cycles where you'll be pushing it and you will feel a little bit irritable or a little bit pissed off. What do you do then to downregulate? What do you do to recover back to the initial part? We're under recovering. You need parasympathetic activation, relaxing the body, psychological detachment, not thinking about work. So then when you know you get into that moderate risk, or you can push to the edges of cynicism, but if I find my clients are getting cynical, let's have a real conversation. Right, you need to recover really freaking hard now. But what do we tend to do? We overcompensate when I get this business deal done, when I get through this quarter, when I get my bonus, back it off, play a long game. Now, the guy I was telling you about in the property business, he was in the red. He was in that extreme risk. He'd cooked himself so much. I love the analogy of a piece of toast. Beautiful piece of sourdough. Which we get into our 50s, we can't eat as much because straight from the lips onto our hips. But, you cook a nice piece of sourdough. If it's undercooked, what do? Put it back in the toaster. So you're going from that green to moderate risk. Now, if it's just a little bit too brown, you can scrape it back. You bring it back to a beautiful piece of fresh sourdough. If you put it in there for way too long and it's cooked and it's crisp, you're gone. That's real burnout.
You just got to throw it out.
Most burnout is in that moderate to the start of the high risk. So at the start, I said, we've got a problem with defining it and measuring it. So then we've got a problem with treating it.
What I really like about this visual diagram, and for folks who are listening to this, we effectively have a 4 columns going from low risk to extreme risk. And as you said, go being green, being low risk, is what happens every single day for most of us. But it allows us to see like irritability compared to cynicism. Like you, when I'm irritable, my wife says to me, I know you're irritable because the fucks have gone up. Right? You're cursing and you weren't.
You guys, you Paddies can swear, because my grandfather's Paddy Flynn, so my family's Irish. I've had feedback in some corporate programs where I've said fuck, and I've been reported. The police have reported me. Dr. Tom's gone fuck, and they go, oh, how funny.
And he's Irish. You get away with it.
There's a difference between the Irish fuck and the Australian fuck.
Yeah. So in our house, that's the signal for me. Going, okay, something's not right.
But what you've done there with your wife, which doesn't surprise me, is you've named it and you've framed it. And when you do that, you have some capacity over it. Yeah, babe. Yeah, I am feeling a bit irritable or a bit shitty.
Yeah. And I've learned now that the calling it out is not a problem, whereas I used to react to it. Now I've learned, okay, that's a sign, it's a signal here. I can choose to just to stay annoyed. I can choose to now go downstairs to the sauna and go for a movie, which is what I usually do, and that disconnection is what works for me.
What's your FLPJ? What do you do for fun, laughter, play, joy? Because that's when you need vitamin FLPJ, when you feel that moderate risk. So, question, what do you do?
Oh, for me, I've got a music club. I've got a movie club. I'm now training for High Rocks. So therefore, they are not, the High Rocks, I won't say it's fun yet, but the music club and movie club, they're the fun parts. That's where laughter, that's where the joy comes from.
So if I was coaching you in setting up your businesses and everything, I know, the big empire you guys are going to build, when you start to fuck, if you're not clubbing, okay, we need to have a chat. And if you keep doing that, you're going to be able to push and grow and grow. Yeah. Then I'd look at science and I'd look at your heart rate variability, and I'd look at the inputs that lead to that, or your deep wave sleep 90 minutes, and then I'd look at exercise minutes and daily steps. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not a rocket scientist, but we use science. And you can now put this in a narrative that most people will understand. Now, yes, when we do some of our programs, we'll get deep into the neuroscience and the physiology pathways, and we can go really deep. Today, though, I want people to know there's science behind it, but don't procrastinate because you want more science. Yeah. Just start to put this into practice.
So, coming to the end of this conversation, for the listeners going, this has been fantastic. What do we get them to do in the next week? Where do we start in the next week?
I made a note on this because you know I get a little bit passionate and a bit excited, and I thought I want to give you something that's a bit punchy. There'd be 3 activities, and they're really simple. First, I do that morning wake up. So this is what I get my elite athletes to do. So when I was at where the Wallabies are staying, I won't let people know where we're staying this morning, what I loved seeing after I went for the walk with the physio and then run and twing my hammy a little bit, a few of the boys are going out to get coffee. It's called a morning wake up. So your body clock is set on about 24.5 hours. What? No. The sun comes up every 24 hours, but our circadian rhythm is not aligned to the external world. So every day we have to do a reset. This is called the free running cycle. You go on holidays, you go to bed a bit later, you get up a bit later. What happens after 2 weeks? You're going to bed at midnight, you're getting up at 8 a.m, back to work on Monday. You feel like you're jet lagged. For you feel like you got on a plane from here in Sydney, you flew into Dublin, and you're walking around the streets of Dublin going, I'm not feeling the crack. My body is totally out of connection. So every day, you got to reset. Get some sunshine, 10 to 30 minutes, outside and skin exposure. Move your body for about 20 to 30 minutes and push caffeine back. You don't want to bring on those adenosine receptors first thing. Caffeine can be powerful, but use it during the day. So that's the first thing, a 30-minute morning wake up. 2 is I would just periodically during the day do some 30-second micro recovery breaks. So to recharge on the run, how it would look like in a busy day. You have a meeting and then just spend 30 seconds. Do a panoramic reframe. So look out at a window, daydream for a while for 30 seconds, and then bring your focus back. Or do deep breathing. Now, we could get really technical and do a 1-hour podcast on breathing, but the main mechanism to make it relaxing, make the exhalation slightly longer than inhalation. So I love 4-8. In for 4, out for 8. And I teach this to executives, CEOs. I teach this to broader leadership teams. I teach this to employee groups, and you sort of see them start. This guy with a shiny head really teaching us this basic shit. And you come back a month or 2 months later, I'm doing that panoramic reframe, or I'm doing the 30-second breath, or I'm humming, because when you hum, that's a great one. The vagus nerve is close to the larynx, the voice box. So when you hum, you get that vagus nerve, which connects the brain, the heart, and the lungs. It's why kids self-soothe. Now, so choose one of those 30-second resets. And if you do a few of those during the day, so do your morning wake up, that gets everything. You get the sunlight on the eyes, iris hits the pineal gland, 500 plus chemicals wake you up. Then work during the day in pulse, periods of high intensity, and then just down-regulate. And even then just try and have a lunch break away from your desk and everything else. And the third one, I've got a caffeine curfew. So tea with flowers after 3 p.m.
Tea with flowers as in chamomile tea or mint tea or something.
Yeah, but don't have strong normal tea like English brekkie tea, because that can be still 60 to 70 milligrams of caffeine. So do a morning wake up, do a few little pulses during the day and have some 30-second breaks, and then cut out caffeine. If people are listening to this and they're not doing those 3 things, you do that for 3 or 4 weeks, your energy levels will go through the roof. Then go get you $200. Then start to look at maybe an exercise program or a bit of a different nutrition plan. We go from 0 to full on straight away, and it's too freaking hard.
Yeah. That's why I stopped in it.
That'll get the energy pathways going.
What have I not asked you that I should be asking you?
How you measure this? We've done the wearable tech. Well, we do a lot of metrics with our corporate program, although we did talk about the high level, so doing the human performance assessment. Well, one thing we haven't discussed with our programs on leadership capacity, we've got a PQ, a Performance Intelligence Index, a PQ index. So we measure strategic recovery, we measure mental agility, we measure energy management, and we measure their biological age. So when we go in and do a program, because consumers are intelligent and smart, it's got to be backed in science. So there's the science. Nearly every group we do, they under-recover. They're not training either enough, or they're not focused enough on what they're training, and they're tired and fatigued. So that metric is really powerful. That's one thing. How long
little detail, right? in 30 seconds.
How long was our masters?
Yeah, we did 2. I did 3 years. Got to get a break. It was a 2-year full-on masters.
2-year full-on masters. And what was the primary learning after 2 years? So we all went to do this masters in coaching psychology. What did we all understand at the end of 2 or 3 years, or however long?
Hopefully, we understood behavior change and how hard it is.
How freaking complex it is. You'll have some people listening to this who are ready to go. If you look at that, I love Proetsch's trans-theoretical model. You'll have some people who've heard some of this stuff before. They just needed a nudge. Bang, they're off. We'll have some people listening to this pod. They're in pre-contemplation. They don't even know what they need to know. Some are in contemplation. They're stacking the seesaw. God, I love Tony Grant's analogies. So hopefully we've stacked the seesaw enough for positives and minimize some of the challenges or negatives that then you get ready to start. What? Prepare. So ask yourself the right questions. Am I going to go to a gym? No, I hate gyms. Do I have a friend, or do I need to buy a dog? Then the other thing we know in behavior change, everyone's going to relapse. So you'll start a new program, you will relapse. I think the average person, I'm a bit dusty on the science, will relapse 8 to 10 times when they start a program. Yeah. If they work with someone like you or I, you'll halve that or get it down.
And you can plan for it.
And you
I
can
know
plan,
we'll relapse, so what I'm going to do.
hey, I knew this was going to happen. And then the other thing is new behaviour takes 3 to 6 months. So yeah, we didn't talk a lot about that. I think it would be remiss of us to go, hey, buy a watch, wearable tech, measure your leadership capacity. Understanding where you are and understanding behaviour change, it's really complex. But what I find when you educate people about that change is freaking hard. You're going to take 2 steps forward and 5 back. And when that happens, this is normal. There's nothing wrong with me.
Which is why the kind of 6 to 8 week, challenge competitions are great for reality TV, but not great for anything else, because 3 to 6 months is the normal.
We do a lot of short, sharp 21-day challenges as part of an ongoing program. So it's like a surge, and they let them come back, but then you come back after. So that pulsing and surging. I'll flip it back onto you. Is there anything
I have a question for
covered?
you. What would the 75-year-old version of you be asking of you now, given everything you know, everything you've done, all the various challenges you've been through and have come out of?
Jeez, that's a good question. What would the 75-year-old version be asking me now?
Of you.
Oh, he'd be asking of me.
Yeah, so you at 75 who could say, hey, I can get a word into you now.
Back off a bit, champ. I think I'm 52. I think my 75-year-old self would be saying, you got 23 years. Like, I'm still pushing hard. Like, I'm building a business. I do 50 plus keynotes a year. I work with 2 sporting teams, a number of individual athletes, record 50 podcasts, and I've got 4 kids. I reckon my 75-year-old self will be saying, just back the fuck off, champ. What's my narrative? I love what I do. I've burned out almost twice. I tried to become the people I was working with rather than being me. I've given myself a time, so there's a mission I'm on. I've got another 12 to 18 months at this intensity.
So I'm going to bring you and Tom Buckley back onto this, let's say 6 months and go. You said in 6 to 81, so we're getting closer. Maisie, where are you?
6 months, no.
Yeah. All right.
12
9
to
months.
18.
9 months
yeah.
you're done. Okay.
Well, I'd love to come back with Tom and we can really dive into that.
As we finish up, Andrew, what's your final word of wisdom for our audience today?
Take accountability. Yeah, be the CEO of your body and brain. We put so much time and effort into renovating homes. We put so much thought into what car we're going to buy and the miles we're going to get. We put so much time into KPIs and KRAs and metrics and performance reviews to run wonderful businesses. Just put a bit of that into running your body and brain and change the narrative. Stop just jumping at I'm burnt out. You may be feeling burnt out, but that's why I really like we've used that continuum. Build capacity, invest in strategic recovery. And then if you're still struggling, okay, then that definition of burnout, that might be more aligned. I reckon so much of it though, it's not diagnosed properly and we're not training to build capacity and to recover properly.
And Jermaine, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
There you go. That was me on the other side of the mic. Pod asked a bunch of really good questions, and I don't often get asked these. If you do take one thing out of this episode, make it the morning wake up. Get that 10 to 30 minutes outside. Get some sunshine on as much skin as you possibly can. Move your body and push the caffeine back. Give that 3 weeks before you spend $1 on anything else. And if there is someone in your life who keeps telling you they're tired or they're feeling burnt out, please send this episode to them.
One more thing before you go. If this made you rethink burnout, next week will make you rethink resilience. Andrew invites Angela Poon and Jackie Lauder from the PQ team to show you how they train their executives and elite athletes to build mental agility. If you haven't heard that term before, don't worry, they're going to go through all of it and the different levers and steps that they use on their clients. So make sure you don't miss it next week. Mental agility is really that edge that decides whether you and your team could take months to absorb change or maybe even just days. That's next week on Performance Intelligence.